mug. After all, I'm in a cat cafe, right? So, but I'm having some ginger and lime tea for my throat, so that's good.
Today, my special of the day
Yes.
is peppermint and black tea.
Ah, cool. Okay, that's
Yeah,
actually a
it's a
good one. Good
mix,
combination. Yeah.
a mix of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hello, guys.
Awesome. Yeah.
No, no. Yeah, I was about to say hello, guys. How's it going?
Yes.
How's everybody going? Today is Sunday, June 1st, 2025. And
Yeah.
today is episode, I forgot the number of the episode, but
Well,
anyway,
I
probably
think,
15,
or
17.
16, if we did like 12 last year, it's got to be 17 or something. But
17,
anyway,
yes. Don't make me do the
we
math,
work with
please.
languages, not numbers.
Don't make me do the math. That's
you
all
know?
I'm asking, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, here.
Yeah.
And this is the episode. This is the 17th episode, probably the 17th episode. And
Yeah.
welcome to Chá Pedagógico, everybody. This is the
Another
place
episode. Yeah.
where, yes, this is the place where you're going to talk about education, brain stuff, mind stuff, linguistic stuff, neuroscientific stuff, geeky stuff.
Exactly.
And today we're
Oh,
going to talk
yes.
about a cartoon
Yeah.
that
Geeky stuff. That's
geeky
important,
stuff
right?
that also inspired us a little bit, you
Yeah.
know. But welcome to Chá Pedagógico. It's good to be back since last episode we were live
We
ish.
were.
Ish.
Well, we were live for the people who attended back in São Paulo, right?
Yeah.
But then we recorded the episode there. It's in Portuguese. You guys can watch it here on Disal's YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's a very important episode, right, Rudy? We talked about the series of the lessons, but anyway, maybe what we're going to talk about today kind of brings a solution to what's going on, right? The type of school we're going to address today
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
something that might help with those adolescents who are feeling kind of displaced and they have problems managing their, mental health, right? So who
And
knows?
and also one of the reasons why we have a very
Yeah.
high why many people actually
Yeah.
quit school,
Yeah.
you know.
Because we talked about that as well,
We
right?
talked about
Yeah.
this some episodes ago.
That's
And
true. Yeah.
well, there are many consequences, there are many reasons, and all these things, and we are going to address these things. But before we actually start, I would like to
Yeah.
give you guys some quick reminders. If this is the first time you're watching the episode of Chá Pedagógico, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Really important. The button is down
Yeah.
here somewhere. If you like this episode, don't forget to click on the thumbs up button. Like the episode, and please share it with as many people as you know. If you know someone that may enjoy the conversation today, share the link. If you have your socials, you
Yeah.
can take a screenshot and tag us in your socials. It's really, really nice. It's important for us to know that what we're saying, that what we're doing is communicating very well with you guys. So
Yeah.
do that. You can follow Andre at the Learning Cosmos. That's his handle on Instagram at the Learning
Exactly.
Cosmos. Mine is Machiello Consultoria. Find us there, tag us there. Disal, distribuidora de conhecimento. Also follow them on Instagram. That's their handle on their
And
on
here on
Instagram.
YouTube, right?
And here on
Subscribe to
YouTube.
their channel. Yeah.
Exactly. Really important. And another important thing, we're going to talk about some books throughout this episode. And if you find some of
Yes.
these titles interesting, and if you want to acquire some of these titles, go to
Yeah.
Disal's website and in the checkout, hashtag CHA25, CHA25 to get
That's our
25%
discount
off.
coupon. Yeah.
Exactly. Super important. You're going to get 25% off of the books you
Yeah.
buy on Disal, and they have
Yeah.
almost every title. Almost
I'm
every
sure
time.
we're going to talk about, they'll have it. For you.
Seriously,
They'll have
it's
them
hard
there,
to find. It's hard not to find a title there. It's really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah,
Sometimes they're
that's
sold
true.
out. If it's
Yeah.
really good, they're sold out. But
Yeah.
it's not because they
Yeah.
don't have it. They had it, but they sold.
Yeah.
You know, so this is really
Exactly.
important. And dude, I think it's really important. It's also
Yeah.
important to start by
Definitely.
giving them the news, giving the people what they want, the news.
Yes.
What's the news?
Which
If
news?
you guys thought that the
Yeah.
so-called air quotes here perfect school was in Finland.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to break you the bad news, but
Or maybe not the bad news, but
well,
different news, right?
yes, I'm gonna break your hearts.
Unexpected.
Yes,
Yeah.
the successful school is not in Finland. And
Yeah.
where is it, dude? Tell them.
Hmm. Actually, it's in a small city near Porto in Portugal. It's called
Yeah.
Santo Tirso, beautiful region in Portugal. And it was inspired by the vision of what we might call this guy a visionary,
Yeah.
because he had the vision back in the 1970s, and then it became something in the 1980s. It developed over the decades, and his name is José Pacheco, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure many of you, if you're educators, you've heard of Escola da Ponte. That's the one that is currently being probably copied all over the world because of how successful it's become, right? And
Yes.
yeah, Finland does have many elements that are very similar to this Scola da Ponte, but I think Scola da Ponte is more, even more flexible, less structured, quite almost anarchist, in a way, because of
That's why I love it.
yes, kind of like, yeah, anarchy is going on there. But there are many things we need to talk about, we analyze here with you folks, because
Yeah.
some things are very interesting, we should probably replicate more. Other things we have to think about our own context, if we could bring, just copy what they have to offer, right, Rudy?
Yes.
But it's aligned with a lot of philosophers, very important educators like our own Paulo Freire,
Yes.
right? John
Yes.
Dewey,
John
even Maria
Dewey,
Montessori.
Anísio Teixeira, Maria Montessori,
Yeah,
uh, Darcy Ribeiro,
yeah,
the ones that really
the big
uh, the
names.
big names, and there are many big
Yeah,
names that we don't have
yeah,
enough time to mention here. We just mentioned
yeah,
a couple of names.
yeah,
And again, what's the whole point behind Scuola da Ponte? And
yeah,
the idea actually behind Scuola da Ponte is to form the person. So
yeah. The whole person.
that's why the school or the project has this anarchist uh, perspective or this anarchist aspect.
Yeah.
Because first of all, no exams,
Yep.
no grades, no
No
grades,
grades
and this is something that we're going to extend to you guys.
and no
Do
exams. You
you think
said, right? No
no
grades and
exams, no grades? I mean, grades. I mean,
yeah,
not grades for the tests. Grades.
yeah.
They are not separated in
They're
grades.
yeah, according to their age or anything like that. They
Yes,
they kind of work together,
they
mixed
work
age
together. They
groups. Yeah,
collaborate. They
yeah,
collaborate very often. You know,
yeah,
and again, this is something that we are going to extend to you. And you can also use the chat box here to tell us where you're from, and also to tell us if you really believe that not having or not separating the students in grades.
yeah.
Do you think this works? Do you think it doesn't work? Do you think it would be a great idea? Why? Why
Share with
not?
us.
Share with us
Come
here in
on.
the chat box, right?
Yeah,
But the whole point is to form the citizen. You're going to form the person, and you're not going to prepare. And this is going to be a recurring criticism that we have
yeah.
throughout this entire episode. We're not just teaching them how to pass an exam. It's
That's
not
it.
just,
Yeah,
okay, you
yeah,
need to do this because there's vestibular. And for you guys, if you're watching this episode or if you're listening to this episode from a different country, vestibular is the equivalent of an SAT in the United States
yeah,
or
yeah.
an exam that
Like
students
an
have to go through.
entry exam for
Exactly.
university, right? Yeah,
Exactly. For universities, you know,
yeah,
or ENEM, which is also something similar to an SAT
yeah,
here in Brazil. It's not about this. It's about having students understand math,
yeah,
languages, and everything. And also something that we're going to address in this episode,
yeah.
explore the world we live in.
Exactly. And
Explore
I
thoroughly.
exactly. This brings me to the famous quote by John Dewey, who was an American educator, philosopher, who said that education is life itself. It's not teaching about life or anything, but it's actually living your life. So it has to somehow bring those kids out, of the classroom into the world to explore what's going on. And I think most people agree. I think that, a lot of people say that we are teaching 21st century kids in using a 20th century curriculum in 18th or 19th century schools, because they pretty much look like prisons, right? With
Mhm.
with the neat rows and everything.
Oh,
But most people here probably agree that kids, they have to be out in the world and explore more, and they can learn from that exercise, right? And we Rudy and I, we were talking a couple of minutes ago, and then we talked about this before when we were planning the episode. And if you're a teacher, you probably remember the same. How many times did you actually go out, like on a field trip, with your schoolmates, and did something like explore something? I remember going to an aluminum factory and a preservative factory. That was really fun because we were fifth graders and we were very stupid and immature. So we had a lot of fun. But that's basically all I remember,
uh,
being on the bus with everyone. And I remember because it was really memorable.
yeah,
It made a difference. But it happened like twice, three times.
yeah.
I don't know about you guys watching us. Let us know. Don't you think we should take kids out, more often to explore the world and learn from experimenting with the world and interacting with real people, real scenarios, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because, of course, José Pacheco's idea for Escola da Ponte was the inspiration, but also what sparked my attention, what caught my attention, was that my daughter, the geeky part, huh?
Ah,
Uh,
yeah.
it took us like what 15 minutes into an episode to get her first geeky moment. So,
Well, we're doing it faster. Sometimes, yeah, it depends on the episode, but good. Yeah.
but my daughter was watching. There is a Brazilian cartoon. I think it's a Brazilian cartoon called O Show da Luna or Luna's
Ah,
Show.
yeah. Yeah.
And Luna is this little girl. She has a brother, and they have a pet. And the whole point is of the show of the cartoon is that she wants to know stuff. She wants to know
Yeah.
stuff.
She's
So
curious.
she's
Yeah.
curious. She's like
Yeah.
our version, this Brazilian version of Curious George. But Curious George was a
Oh,
monkey,
yeah.
and Luna is a girl. But she
Yeah.
is our Brazilian version of that. And my daughter loves this show, and she was watching the show. I was watching the show with her, and something caught my attention that Luna, the main character, said in the episode. She said, "Why do we need buildings and walls to learn?"
Ah, yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, wait a minute! I fished this, I caught this, like wow!" It
Yeah.
hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks, like bam.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, wait a minute! I got that from a cartoon. All right, so we have something." And then José Pacheco and all these guys. Uh, do we do do we not do we do we as
Yeah.
in
Do we or do
not
we?
do
Yeah.
we do we
Yes.
actually need buildings and walls to learn?
Yeah.
The answer is no, we don't, because
Yeah.
again, the whole point of school, the whole point of being a school, is to make people ready
Yeah.
to be citizens, to
Yeah.
for the real world. And what Andres said a couple of minutes ago about going on few trips, not even few trips are enough.
Yeah.
Even if you have like twice every semester, is not enough. The idea of being a school is to actually explore the community. And
Exactly.
let me extend this to something to you guys. What do you really know? If you guys work at a school, do you know who the neighbor of your school is? Who's your neighbor?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
lives near your school? Who lives across the street from the school you
Do
work
you know
for?
your community, right? That's the point.
Do
Yeah.
students know the community? Do students
Yeah.
know? Do they know if there's a tree in front of the school, not in the school, in front of the school? Do you know the story or
Yeah.
the history behind that tree? Do they know the history of the neighborhood? You know,
Yeah.
it's really important. It's important to explore. Do they know if the next door neighbor of your school, uh, if that person is bothered by the physical education classes because
Yeah.
PE classes are normally super noisy?
They are.
Is the
Yeah.
neighbor bothered by that? Why? Do you know what the neighbors, or do you know what the community, the neighborhood, or even the block Do you know their
Yeah.
needs? Maybe you
Yeah.
can have many schools love to have science fair, and it's really nice.
Oh,
It's
I
really
I
important,
was
right?
dude,
Yeah.
as a nerd, I love the
No,
science
it's
fair, you know?
freaking
Yeah.
awesome. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe the science fair should be something. All the projects should be focused on what the block or what the neighborhood needs, and
Exactly.
you can create
And
something.
it could be open to the community. Like people
Exactly.
from the neighborhood can actually visit and look at the exhibition, ask students questions, you know? Yeah,
And
that's
also,
yeah,
the students should knock on doors,
yeah,
asking them, interview them, get to know them,
yeah.
explore that. They can learn physics from cars passing by. Why
Yeah,
not?
velocity and time and things like that, right?
Why
Like you
not?
said, walls, buildings. I've heard a lot of examples of, teachers, math teachers who took their kids out to measure the shadow cast by a building at whatever time, and then they can calculate using the angles. They can calculate how tall the building is or something like that, and that's a very practical way to get students out in the open. I think a lot of people are probably concerned with student security, right? Their safety. And it's, again, it's something that you have to plan really well. It's something that will require many people to supervise. But I think the it's clear. The message is clear. Why is Escola da Ponte so successful? Why did we talk about Finland for many decades? Because they kind of did that. They opened their gates, their doors to explore the community. I remember watching a documentary. Finland is not the model we are discussing here, but this happened to be in Finland, right?
Hmm.
Where students helped build the playground. So they were the ones measuring, calculating things. So it involved a lot of things like physics, materials, metal, wood, whatever, glass, and math, calculations, angles, things like that. So I think it's the idea of learning from the world
And
and in the world, right?
and one more thing, why should the playground be inside the school, within the walls of the school? Why
Yeah,
not explore the playground that's in the park across from the school?
yeah,
Why not? Oh, but the playground is not very structured. Okay, this is
yeah,
something for the community, maybe to go on the city hall and talk to the representatives. I don't know. And
yeah,
say, hey, look, we're kids. Or maybe you can create a school project where you're going to
yeah,
actually make the playground of the neighborhood better,
yeah.
improve it. I don't know, because
That's what Deborah
that's what it
Garofalo did,
is.
man. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if I may just share a very quick example, Deborah Garofalo, who was one of the finalists of a very important teacher award a couple of years ago, she was working at a school in São Paulo.
Hmm.
Poor neighborhood. They had a major problem with recycling, garbage in the community. So she needed, materials to teach them robotics and coding, basically, right? And then she said, "Why don't we take the kids out? We help clean the community, right? Collect those, plastic bottles, whatever they could find, actually." And then bring back to school, and we use those materials to create the robots, right?
Yeah.
And that's what she did, and that's amazing. And you see, that's what Rudy is saying. You can use the creativity and the drive of your students' curiosity to help solve problems in the community, and they can learn in the process. That's amazing. That's an idea we have to explore more, right?
And it's not only about uh, rolling up their sleeves and actually uh, improving the playground. It's also talking about politics,
Yeah,
negotiations. Hey, look, politicians, you need to negotiate. Language. Hey, I'm a
yeah,
linguist. I'm a cognitive linguist. So talking about language, because the way you're going to communicate with the politicians is not going to be the same way you're going to communicate with parents or with your
exactly.
community in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
it's all about this. We're not going to talk about mental representations right now, but it's also about improving the repertoire of your mental representations. It's about everything. And again, it's not just inside inside the cartoon, no show da Luna. It's also inside one of Pacheco's book called Aprender em Comunidade from
Yep.
2014. And he says this in the book. He says,
Yeah.
what do we learn within the walls of a school that cannot be learned outside? There's nothing we
Yeah.
learn in the school within the building that cannot be learned outside the buildings,
Yeah.
because we don't need that. We need to explore. We need to know what real life is like. And and it's so interesting because then when they become adults, the market, the workforce requires they have soft skills. How are they going to have amazing soft skills when they go to school and they learn how to pass exam after exam after exam after exam after exam after exam, and pass and produce, because this is resulting actually into something that um, dangerous, which is
Yeah.
parents demanding productivity coming from their kids because they are enrolling their kids into
Oh
school,
yeah.
not because the school is good or because the school is going to um,
Yeah.
offer kids opportunity to actually negotiate, to live
Yeah.
in the community. Not this. They
It's
enroll their
based on
kids.
how many kids pass the inane, basically, right?
And they,
You know.
how many
Yeah.
how many kids did you how many kids did the school pass for medicina or medical schools?
Exactly. Yeah. Engineering, law,
Seriously?
right? Those are the
Really?
traditional ones. Yeah.
Or
And you know
even
what's funny, man?
or even worse, which is something new.
Yeah. The
Is this an
the
international school?
yeah.
Is my kid going to have an
Yeah.
opportunity to study abroad?
Exactly.
There should be a
But
consequence.
you said it, man. The funny thing I was going to mention is that schools are advertising how good they are by putting up billboards with the picture of who got first place or whatever in medical school, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's very appealing to parents because they're thinking from a market perspective, like they want their kids to be employed as quickly as possible and to have a very good job so they get paid accordingly. But we have research showing that most kids are going to become, if they're, they don't know how to develop those skills we were talking about, they're going to become dysfunctional adults, right? And what is happening is we have seen the results of that. We are seeing the results of that. That's why we've mentioned here many times the publication of books about mental health. We talked about this in the last episode. A bunch of episodes ago, we talked about this, banning mobile phones and things like that. It's because those kids, they are overprotected. They're considered too fragile,
Yeah.
and that's bad for them because they have to experiment frustration and suffering, and they have to develop patience and their executive functions like inhibitory control and all of that. How can you do that better than taking them outside and having them do something with the community and talk to people, and right? So yeah, we have to revisit what we're doing at
And then
schools.
again, you may say here in the chat box, and again, guys, I miss you guys
Yeah.
interacting with us here in the chat box. If you're watching us, interact with us in the chat box here.
Yes,
This
share
is
share.
this is a conversation, okay, guys? So it's important that you share. But then you may say, but Rudy, Andre, parents are going to be worried about their safety because it's not safe out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to be safe if you keep your students within the walls of the school, because once you start exploring, you're going to see what the community needs. And if it needs safety, you're going to demand safety.
Yeah.
You're going to fight for
Yeah.
safety. And then kids are going to be like, okay, I don't know what to do. If you do this
Yeah.
once, yeah, don't ever learn. What's one of the most important rules of neuroscience? Repetition leads to learning. You need to have
Exactly.
repetition. So it's not just a one and done thing. It's not just a field trip. Well, first, the first problem of a field trip, it's a controlled space. You're not going
Yeah.
to take your kids to a square or to a park across the street. No, it's a controlled space. It's not a real community. First of all, second of all, maybe the first time if you do this, the first time if you do it once and you never do this again, then they'll never learn what to do, how to behave, how to cross the street. Hey kids, you
Yeah.
gotta know, you gotta take a look at both sides before you cross the street, because blah blah blah. And they're gonna learn that there are some people who are not going to respect the signs, they're not going to respect the traffic. See, they'll learn, but it has to have a continuum. It needs to
Yeah.
keep on going. Otherwise, this is not going to happen. This is what's going to spark autonomy in these kids,
Yeah.
and
And you
not
know,
a controlled
yeah.
space in a field trip. I'm not saying field trips are bad,
Yeah.
okay? I'm saying it's not enough.
Yeah, it's the biggest problem is frequency too, because normally what we do as school owners, coordinators, directors is that you plan a very big thing, a big event. Like when I went to the preservative factory, that's a big thing. But I
What
could
was
have.
seriously? What was the teacher thinking? I mean, it's super important, of
It
course, but
was
not for
sex
fifth
education.
graders.
Yeah, it was sex education, I think. And but it was funny. I still remember. But before you get to that level of planning a huge trip with everyone, you can explore what's around you. Like Rudy said, who's your neighbor? What do they do? We can have some guided visits with our kids and talk to whoever is in the community to understand their needs, to understand what's missing in their neighborhood, to actually prompt some kind of change, right? Talking to the representatives and actually make some political pressure. But here's an example before we move on to the cognitive advantages
Yeah.
and everything. An example that actually happened in India in the 1990s with something that was called the hole in the wall. So Professor Sugata Mitra from the University of Newcastle, I think, he decided in rural India. So it was, the countryside. They didn't have a lot of resources. So they actually opened a hole in the wall and they put a computer connected to the internet there. And they didn't do anything else. They just left there in the community. And then a couple of days after, kids found out and they went there and they started messing around and they learned how to use the computer by themselves. That was in the late 90s, I think, or 95, mid 90s. So they learned how to access the internet, how to download pictures, how to send emails and things like that. And the coolest thing is that there was absolutely no supervision at all. It was just kids' curiosity driving them. And that brought up a term that we use nowadays. It's called MIE, minimally invasive education. It's
Mhm.
when you give the kids the opportunity, the tools, you
Full
don't have to
autonomy.
supervise. Yeah. And then they will develop a lot of autonomy by experimenting. So, that's one example. Without supervision. If you have supervision, that's better, that's safer, because then you can control where the kids go, you can plan ahead, right?
Yeah.
But even without supervision, things can work out really well. Yeah.
It's I don't know why people are so afraid of having kids explore their curiosity.
Yeah.
And again, just to wrap up this first moment of Scola da Ponte and introducing the ideals behind Scola da Ponte and what schools should really be. Schools should really be like Scola da Ponte, where kids are actually free to explore their creativity, their curiosity, their skills, the skills that are being
Yeah.
developed, skills they already developed, depending on their age. But I really don't understand. I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't understand why we should have summative assessment at all. We shouldn't. We shouldn't, because this is a measure for squat. Summative assessment is a measure for squat, for nothing.
Yeah.
If you have a very good cheater in the group, how do you actually know whether the person absorbed whatever needs to be absorbed? He is or she, they are a good cheater. They cheat on the tests.
Yeah, yeah,
If you have a person that gets nervous in every exam, they're not going to, you are
they're
not going
not
to be able
gonna
to
do well. Yeah,
see if they
yeah,
absorbed what needs to be absorbed, if they learned what needs to be learned. If
yeah,
you, so again, in one more time, this is, I think it's the last stage of the revolution. Why separate them in grades? I mean, of course,
yeah,
it's interesting, but should we really separate them in grades? Of course, we maybe we could group them. Okay. So
yeah,
we have a group of five 12-year olds, and then we have a group of three 5-year olds. You can group them, but let them explore. I remember when I was in
yeah,
school and I was a kid, recess was separated also based on their age.
yeah. That's
Why?
true.
Why are they
Yeah,
so afraid of putting together 14-year-olds with 10-year-olds?
yeah.
Why? Why?
It's man, it's really it's I think it's because of this notion of danger that people have that is completely, I think it's is misplaced, you know. And there's another thing, it's logistics, right? It's just a system of grouping. Like it's easier for you to group kids according to their age because this is very much based on a cognitivist notion that goes back to Piaget. So if you think about the stages of cognitive development, and this kind of made all of schools what they are today in a big way, according to certain ages or age bends, you know, that's what the cognition of the student will allow them
Exactly.
to
That's
do.
exactly
And then
what
you put
Piaget
them
said.
together.
That's
And
exactly
that's
what
how you
Piaget
put them
said.
together.
I
Yeah.
completely understand. This part I
Yeah.
understand. But why should they not interact? Because in
Yeah.
schools, they don't interact.
Yeah.
And if you say logistics, what kind of logistics are we talking about when you have schools with 30 kids in the group?
Yeah.
What
In the
kind of
group.
logistics is?
Exactly.
I mean,
So,
is it
sometimes they have
really
50
exactly?
when you
Is
go
it
to public
really
schools. Yeah.
yes? Is it really better to have a group of 30 12-year olds together than a group
Yeah.
of three 10-year olds and two 12-year olds together with four 12-year olds and put them together? Is it really better than this? Really? Because of Piaget, because of this constructivist thing?
Yeah.
We understand they
But
have
that's the
different
thing.
development stages. We
Yeah.
understand. We're not saying that they're going to think the same. They don't even have the same cognitive skills developed
Yeah.
yet. We
Yeah.
understand this. But you don't, what
Yeah.
really can't happen, and I really don't understand is why the segregation. It's a terrible word, but we do have. They are
We
segregated.
do. They
No,
are.
these are fifth graders and these are eighth graders and all these things. I don't believe it's logistics because
Yeah.
again, if you get into regular schools, you're going to find 25 uh, kids or 25 students in the same group.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's not logistics. I think it's
And there's
they think it's
parents
the way it is, and they
pressure
don't want
as
to
well, you
change.
know. Yeah.
Parents, don't get me started with
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah, parents, I can tell, I think everybody would agree. Let's say we start approaching the Scola da Ponte, philosophy tomorrow, and then we start mixing students according to a pedagogical project that they go through. I can guarantee that a lot of parents will just show up and say, "Hey, why is my kid studying with a much younger kid or a much older kid for that matter?" Because again, we have been sort of infected with that notion, cognitivist notion, that for certain age groups, that's all you can do. So if you were going to learn something more complex, then you have to be older.
Yeah,
But there's a notion of linearity that is complicated in education, that we just learn. I mean, this is true for many things, but it's not always true because, yeah, sure, there are certain topics that we have to learn after other topics because we have
Yes.
first to build our prior knowledge.
Hmm.
So, like, you cannot learn how to divide if you don't know how to multiply, for
Hmm.
example,
Yes.
because you need one to do the other.
Yes.
But there are many other topics, content that doesn't have to follow a very linear progression. So then, but we have systematized that into the curriculum. And that's why it's very difficult to kind of disassemble all of that. So you have the curriculum that has been artificially put together by humans, us, and that's connected to a notion of cognitive development and age and a notion of how many students can be in the classroom. And so all of those things are tied up a little. And for you to break that, you have to completely revolutionize school, like Escola da Ponte has done, right?
Hmm.
And it's very difficult for parents to accept that,
Yes.
for society to accept that, because they have this pre-established notion that it should be this way, right?
And I really believe the main question coming from parents wouldn't even be why is my kid learning or having classes with younger kids. It
Yeah.
would be something like, why do we have teenagers talking to my kids as
Yeah.
if teenagers were criminals?
Yeah. They're
Because
going
they
to
are
teach them bad things.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
What they really need to understand, and I really believe this is the cue for us to move on to the cognitive
Yeah.
skills.
Exactly.
What they really need to understand, and again, not only parents, teachers as well, okay? Because the whole point of this episode is to break paradigms and all these things. But you've heard of zone of proximal development, right? Everybody here has learned of proximal
Yeah.
development.
Vygotsky. Yeah.
Vygotsky, right? Everybody's tired of talking about it. What's the
Yeah.
whole point of what's the meaning behind zone of proximal development? That if you have a group of, in this case, kids interacting with another group of kids, because the level of communication and the level of prior knowledge and the level of cognitive skills are going to match, and they'll be able
That's
to
right.
communicate better. We're going to have better understanding. You know, this is true. This is
And that and
correct.
that mimics real life, because that's what we do. We talk to people from different age groups all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we adapt, right? According, because different generations,
Yes.
even different linguistic features,
Exactly.
depending on
Thanks for the
generation.
cue. Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much for the cue. This is amazing. The ball's up.
Yeah.
All I got to do is slam it.
There you go.
Yeah, basketball's all over here, so all I got to do is
Yeah.
slam it.
Yeah. I saw that you had the ball today.
Yes, yes. That sounded very weird.
Yeah. For those of you who are just listening
It's a
to us, I'm
basketball.
referring to his basketball. Okay. If you're not watching us, Rudy has a basketball in his hands. Okay. Not just any ball. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
if you have kids from different ages interacting with one another, this
Yeah.
is they are going to improve not only their linguistic repertoire but their mental representation repertoire.
Yeah.
Why? Let's say that you have my daughter. My daughter is 5 years old, and
Yeah.
she stays at school full time because I'm teaching. My wife is working. Not like she's working and I'm just teaching. No, I'm also working. Teaching is working.
Teaching is working. Yeah.
Teaching is working.
Even
Right?
though people think it's not,
It's not, but it is. And
Yeah.
she stays at school full time. It's a Montessorian school, really nice. That's really cool. But not only when she is having her regular lessons, because then she also interacts with kids from different ages. When she is having her extra activities, she also has extra activity with people from different ages, with different ages.
Yeah.
This is really nice because it improves the mental representations. That's why when she comes talking about some stuff, and we're constantly shocked by, whoa, wait a minute, where did this come from? This is not coming from any cartoon, because we watch cartoons together, we
Yeah.
play together, we do almost everything together with her, and we kind of know the language and the things that happen in everything she is exposed to. And we are constantly
See?
surprised by it. And this is
Yeah.
improving her understanding. And again, once you have a mental representation, no, let me change this because it's going to
Yeah.
sound very deterministic. But
Yeah.
the mental representations are expressed by the linguistic representation. Linguistic representation as in language, as in spoken discourse. Okay. I didn't want to sound deterministic because, again, we don't know which comes first. We don't know if we first
Language
acquire.
or thought.
Exactly. We don't know what
We're going
comes
back
first.
to Sapir Wharf here, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. And if you want
Language
to see
determinism.
this,
Yeah.
watch the previous episodes of Chá
Yeah.
Pedagógico here on Gisal's
There's
YouTube
one
channel.
about Arrival, the movie. That was pretty cool.
And
Okay.
also the first one we did last year with George
George
Orwell.
Orwell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's even
watch
better.
that. It's really cool. So
Yeah.
it's also very important to have this kind of communication. But
Yeah.
really, I don't think again, it's not very practical in my school because we have a lot of kids and it's impossible to group them, to put them together. It's going to be super messy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Remember what we said some minutes ago. No, many minutes ago, because it was in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
Explore the community. Once you explore the community, kids are going to develop mental representations on their own. Meaning that,
Yeah.
just to give you another example, just some months ago, right across the street from my daughter's school, there's a parking lot, and I think it was a sunny day. Yes, it was a sunny day.
Yeah.
I parked the car, and then my daughter said, "Dad, there's a lizard there." And
Aha.
there really was.
Yeah.
There was a lizard, you know,
Yeah.
and a big one, not a gecko. It wasn't, well, it
Okay.
was kind of, it was half
But
gecko
not
and
a
half lizard.
Komodo dragon, right?
No, it
Which
was,
is probably the one of the biggest lizards.
yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
bigger than a gecko and smaller than a real lizard. So it was in
Okay.
between. So it was a
Yeah.
geck lizard or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or a liz gecko or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh yes, there is." And then she asked me, "What's it doing there?" I said, "Well, because it was stood still,
Yeah.
taking a sunbathe,
So
basically."
yeah, it was
And
warming its blood, right?
and I said,
Yeah.
"Well, it's sunbathing. The lizard or the gecko is sunbathing." And
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, okay." So she developed her own concept based on that.
Yeah.
If I don't know what happened, she never told me anything, and I never got back to that story again. But
Yeah.
maybe when she got into school, she was talking to her teachers or to her friends in school. She may have said something like, "Today I saw again." She was telling the story.
Yeah.
And as she was telling the story, she was expressing her mental representation, the concept that she
Exactly.
developed minutes ago with me
And
in the parking lot.
and it was driven by her curiosity, and that's the thing. When we're talking about cognition, and we have to be very, very clear, it's not completely unstructured like Sugata Mitra's hole in the
Mhm.
wall experiment. It's
Mhm.
even if you look at Scuola da Ponte, there are different nuclei, so you start with initiation for very young learners, so they have more tutoring, they have teachers assisting, giving them input. It's not completely free,
Mhm. Mhm.
anarchist. And then you move to a nucleus they call
Yeah.
consolidation. That you get a little older, and then finally it's more about deepening your knowledge, expert knowledge, and then you become more and more autonomous. You depend less and less on your teacher, but at the same time, there are certain things, and that's the cognitive, thing I want to mention here, that we would never be able to learn without assistance. There are certain things, so that's why the tutors. Maybe that's why a lot of people don't like Scuola da Ponte or a more constructivist school. As educators, it feels like we have nothing to do because just throw the kids there and they will develop their curiosity and autonomy and find out. That's very wrong. We have a
Mhm.
lot to do, more even to do, because there are certain things that kids cannot find out on their own. There are certain things that took humans hundreds of years to come up with, formulae and stuff that in maths and things that came because of experimentation or philosophy or. So we should be there to help them get that.
Yeah.
It's if it's through a book, reading something, or if it's through us explaining something, giving more direct instruction when needed. Yes, but that core knowledge is always going to help them do something like a
Yeah.
project. So that's their pedagogical project. Of course, there's absolutely no way. It's very difficult for a child to find out on their own how to calculate the velocity of a car if they
Mhm.
don't know the formula,
Yeah.
because it took many physicists from the old times to get to that formula. So they cannot find out stuff like that. We're not saying that they should. We're saying that we can guide them. Like, when Sophia asked Rudy about the lizard, he can guide her or tell her to go, okay, why don't we read something about lizards together? Why don't, because they are reptiles, right? Did you know that reptiles are cold-blooded animals? They cannot figure this out by themselves. They have to have someone teach them that. But we're not saying that we're kind of, the idea is not to leave them alone and discover things on their own all the time, but to be there with support and help them use this knowledge to engage in pedagogical projects, right?
Because as you said some
Yeah.
minutes, and this is true now, some minutes
Yeah.
ago, you need to create prior knowledge. And
Yes.
in cognitive linguistics, what is prior knowledge? Prior knowledge in this case, in the case of mental representation, is you need to create the basis. You need to show them what a circle is,
Yeah.
okay? What a circle is, and
Exactly.
then someday, somehow, they are going to extend from circle to sphere,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know? But this first step may be done by us. We are going to spark the first step, or maybe we're going to introduce the first step, or maybe we're just going to show them the first step. And you're going to create, we don't call it prior knowledge and meta representation, but we call it a stereotype.
Yeah.
It's a stereotype because then everything is going to be a circle. And then as they explore, then you say, oh, maybe, oh, okay, it looks like a circle, but it's not actually a circle. This is a sphere.
There you
Well,
go.
why is that a sphere? And then you expand the mental representation. And once you expand the mental representation, you're also going to expand the linguistic repertoire, because there is going to be a moment in which they'll have to express that mental representation. And
Yeah.
we teachers, this is what Paulo Freire said. This is not an episode about Paulo Freire again. There is an episode from
Yep.
last year dedicated to Paulo Freire. This is not, but we are talking about big names. Okay. And Paulo Freire is not just a big name. I think
Oh,
he is
yes.
the name.
He's the
The name.
name.
He is
Yeah, he
the name.
definitely is. Yeah. Yeah.
He is the name. And then you have all the other names, but he is the name. But
Yes.
that's why he said we're facilitators. We're enlightening. We're enlightening them. We're showing them, like, hey, look, why don't you take this way? Why don't you go through that way? That's what we need to do as educators, as
Yeah.
language
And
teachers,
and
as
man,
math teachers, as
yeah.
teachers.
Paulo Freire. So I'm glad you brought him up again, because Paulo Freire was really all about learning from your context, which what we normally do is that we have imported a curriculum from Europe. Really, we the curriculum we use was imported, was brought to us, imposed on us
Yeah.
from Europe. And then you have to learn certain things because they are considered academic knowledge features, whatever you want to call them. And then you just focus on developing cognition. But cognition cannot be separated from social and emotional learning, emotions, and bodily sensations out in the world. That's the thing. There was a moment in history where when we decided that school is about training the brain and cognitive prior knowledge, basically just learning stuff, getting input. But and then we stopped worrying so much about making kids deal with their emotions, with their social and emotional learning, exploring the environment. Only some schools kept those features, right?
Yeah.
And Paulo Freire was the guy who said, okay, why do you have to learn how to read like this if this sentence has absolutely nothing to do with your context? So why should you even care about learning that sentence if it was imported from Europe
Yeah.
in this textbook, right? So he basically shifted, the attention to what's going on right in front of you. What is happening? What are the tools, the instruments you're using in your day-to-day life, right? And that's how he revolutionized education, because he made the students who were adults, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Paulo Freire
Mhm.
developed a literacy program
Exactly. For
that
adults.
was for 300
Yeah.
grown-ups,
Yeah.
and it was incredibly successful, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing, because they started learning from what was around them, what they were doing every day, the stuff that was familiar to them, not some imported curriculum from Europe. That's what we are asking teachers to do. That's what Escola da Ponte does,
That's what
learning from
every
your
school should
community.
do.
Yeah,
Bring down the walls. Bring down the
yeah.
walls. Bring down
Rudy
the
Rudy is
walls.
much more anarchist than you think, folks.
You have no idea, man. You have no
Bring down
idea.
the walls.
You should, but it's true.
Yeah,
And again,
yeah,
I think it's important because we're talking to many language teachers, English teachers, second language
yeah.
teachers here. When in for second
Yeah. Anna
language
from
teachers,
Argentina is here. She's
uh,
just made. Yeah,
I missed her. And by the way, Anna,
yeah,
come on. When are you going to bring us to Argentina?
yeah. That's a good question.
When are you going to
Yeah,
say, hey guys, why don't you come here?
yeah,
We have a lot of educators here. We have a lot of teachers
yeah.
here. Let's have a Chá Pedagógico live here in Buenos
Let's.
Aires or in
I think that
wherever
they're not
you
in
are
Buenos
in
Aires.
Argentina, in Cordoba,
They're
in
here.
Mendoza. I
I don't
don't
know.
know. Just tell us where you are
Yeah,
and we'll be there, you know?
yeah.
And there's one more thing, Anna. If you really invite us, I really, really, really wanted to try one of your alfajores.
Ah, they're
Come
the
on.
best, man. Yeah,
Come
and the
on.
and the empanadas too,
Oh,
delicious.
yeah, no, but
I love
oh
empanadas.
man, the alfajor,
Parrilla,
man.
very good. The meat is very
No, no,
good.
no, no,
Yeah,
no, no. Don't get me started with the meat
yeah,
and the wine because
yeah,
man,
man.
but
They
the
have the
alfajor.
steak. Very good.
Seriously. But
Yeah,
seriously, why are we saying bring down the walls? Because it's
yeah,
all about exploring the community once again. Uh, again, we've been saying this since the first episode of Chá Pedagógico six and a
yeah,
half years ago. 6.5 years ago.
yeah.
Social interactions trigger cognitive skills or cognitive activities. You cannot you're you cannot rely on a cognitive activity happening on its own. You can't.
Exactly,
You can't.
exactly.
There
Yeah,
needs to have some sort of interaction. And when we say interaction, we're talking about any kind of interaction. Right now, I'm
mm.
interacting with my basketball. My basketball is here in my hands. It's
Yeah,
been here in my hands throughout this entire episode. It's an interaction. I am interacting with it.
yeah,
Why? If I had no idea how my basketball worked, let's say I'm an alien, I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know it bounces. I don't even know the
yeah,
word bounce. But anyway, I'm going to explore. And once I drop it on the floor, I'm going to realize that it comes back to me because it bounces back to my hand. And then I'm going
yeah,
to learn something. I'm going to be like, ooh, if I throw this or if I drop this, this is going to get back to my hands. This is so nice because of interaction. But if I keep my basketball here sitting in front of me, I'm looking at it, there's no way that I'm going to learn some stuff or that I'm
yeah.
going to
And
improve my
yeah,
cognitive skills over basketballs. I
and
may
that's why,
create
man.
hypotheses.
Yeah, yeah. That's you summarized, the final considerations, I think, because what what is special about Montessorian schools, Waldorfian schools, Escola da Ponte? What's special about them is that it's much more hands-on, and it's not just a bunch of abstractions that we're teaching, more exclusively through direct instruction, teacher-centered approaches, right? That students are sitting and just listening and getting a lot of input and not really externalizing that in any way whatsoever. They're just, trying to memorize as much as they can so they can pass a test. And we know that this will lead to very poor learning because they will forget most of what they learned after they take the exams. We have forgotten, haven't we?
They didn't learn
We took
actually,
a
right?
bunch of exams
Yeah, they
when we
didn't learn.
were teenagers. We don't remember
Let,
half of it. We don't
look,
remember
look.
80% of it.
Yeah, you mentioned something
Yeah,
very important, and I'd like to,
yeah,
address
yeah,
the elephant.
yeah.
Celta. How many of you have
Ah,
taken
yeah,
Celta, the
yeah,
Celta course here?
yeah,
Many of you. How many of you actually learned new things or anything from Celta? Because I know from experience
yeah,
that many teachers have taken the Celta course just to get the certificate,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's not even an exam.
It
And it's not even
depends.
an exam.
Yeah, yeah. If it depends, that's the thing. I think if you are a pre-service, like you've just graduated, Celta can give you a foundation. But the problem is when it becomes mandatory, when you are at a certain level, because then you have to prove your skills. But that's the thing. The world kind of works like that. We have to get certificates to prove people that we have done something that we have.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But when you think about kids' long-term learning, like effectively learning stuff, we have to add more hands-on things. And Escola da Ponte, Montessori schools, Waldorfian schools, they do that well. I'm not saying we should completely neglect direct instruction or
Mm,
explicit teaching. I think, like I said, there are certain things that if you are not taught by someone, you cannot figure out by yourself. No, because it's the product of sometimes millennia of philosophizing and experimenting. Like that's why humans are special. We record knowledge, it becomes our legacy, we pass it on, and we can't figure out everything. But if we have tutors that can help us with that kind of foundational knowledge, then we can use that to do something more hands-on,
mhm.
because it's like the basketball.
Yeah.
Is it better for you to learn what basketball is by reading a textbook and looking at illustrations, or even watch an NBA game,
Yeah.
or for you to actually hold a basketball and play basketball, right?
Yes.
So those are
Yes.
two different things, and
Yes.
that's what
Yes.
we're asking.
And
Yeah.
something that I was about to mention, and then I got distracted by the delicious alfajores, the Argentinian alfajores. But anyway,
Yes,
the context.
definitely.
Many language teachers, I'm going to say here in Brazil because that's where we are in, but many language teachers here in Brazil, they know, or they claim they know what contextualized lessons are. They don't. They don't. What is a contextualized lesson? Is when you bring the student's universe to your lesson. Meaning that if your students are used to having international meetings, bring the international meetings
Yeah.
to your lessons. If your students are used to playing basketball every Friday and Sunday, bring basketball. If your students are used to playing hide and seek, bring hide and seek. It's bringing their universe and inserting content inside this universe. So if you're language teachers, if you have to teach present perfect, don't,
Yeah.
please don't use the timeline and talk
Oh
about
yeah.
current events. This
Yeah.
is not a contextualized lesson. What is a contextualized lesson? When you use the universe, when you use the experiences or the background of your students, then you insert present perfect. Then you can use a timeline, you
What
can use whatever you want.
which
I recommend you
countries
don't, but
have
anyway.
you been to, or what have you done
Because I
in
know
life,
many, yeah, because I know
Yeah.
many teachers do this. They say they put a
Yeah.
timeline and then they say,
Yeah.
okay, the World Cup in 1994, look, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This is not
And
contextualized. It's
this
not, it
can
doesn't,
only, yeah, that's the thing.
not, I
This
mean, because they
cannot
think,
be the only instructional model
yes,
you have. It should
no,
it should start from something more personalized, and then if you want to differentiate,
of
because
course.
then you can give an example. But that's the problem we see all the time, is that we start from the very abstract, and most of us are doing that in English, and
Yeah.
your students have a low level, so you are definitely causing cognitive overload because
Oh yeah.
you're talking about all the other tenses to explain this one tense. This is called irrelevant. uh, John Sweller, the guy who came up with the idea of cognitive overload, he said that this is called extraneous load. It's all the irrelevant info details that you add to explain something. You don't need that. What you need is an example from real life, from your
Yeah.
student, like Rudy said. But then, of course, those kids are going to take an exam because that's how it works. Then it might be useful for them to really know the abstractions there when they I don't know, take
But
the
that's
FCE, or but that's much later on, right?
and this
It's
is
not really,
why and this is why it has to be called a revolution. That's why we're
yeah.
having this episode, because uh I don't know if Jose Pacheco is ever going to watch us. Please do so.
Jose, I
Hey,
met Jose Pacheco. He's a funny guy,
no,
yeah,
he's a
but
great guy.
I
He's a
don't think
great
he's gonna
guy.
watch us.
I'm
We could send it to him, right?
If you really
Yeah,
want Jose Pacheco to watch this episode, share the hell
yeah.
out of this episode in all your socials. It's gonna
Yes,
get, if it gets
yeah,
viral, he is going to watch it.
yeah,
Seriously, I'm sure he will. But the revolution is, it starts here. Because if every, of course, am I dreaming here? Oh my goodness, am
yeah.
I dreaming? But if every school starts changing their MO, their modus operandis,
Yeah,
if every school starts changing their MO, then the system is going to become obsolete.
yeah,
Then, yeah, oh, but I'm going to enroll my kid in this school because of this. Why? No, no, no. Parents are going to think of other stuff. The system is going to think of other stuff. Maybe we can still have vestibular, but not only vestibular, because the
yeah,
problem with vestibular is that the entire future is defined based on one day of exam or some days of
yeah.
exams.
Based on a number, a grade they get from that exam, right? That's it.
Seriously, how
Yeah,
many other Oscar Niemeyer did we lose because of this system that we
yeah,
have? Maybe the person was an amazing engineer. Maybe that person
yeah,
could be the next Leonardo da Vinci. And because of the system, this Leonardo da Vinci never came true. Maybe we had an amazing Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart
Earhart. Yeah,
did the
yeah,
pilot,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Exactly.
Maybe we had the Brazilian Amelia Earhart, the next one, and
Yeah,
we never had her because she she felt
yeah.
nervous when she had
She
to take
was
exams.
forced to fit into this box, of a system that really doesn't
Exactly.
allow
Yeah.
them to explore other opportunities. And that's why, for me, this is the final message. Really, what is Escola da Ponte doing that we should copy? We should integrate what we're teaching
Yeah.
with what is out there in
Yeah.
our communities, and allow those kids to explore and find what really drives them, and develop those social skills that they have to, because this is going to somehow help with the crisis we're going through, the mental health crisis we're going to, going back to the real world, like Rudy
Hmm.
said, and finding out who you are, what drives you, what are your passions, and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
And
it. Let's do it.
no, we still have two
Yeah.
hours of episode, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're
but
gonna we're gonna do a mini documentary today.
yeah.
No, well, if
No,
it's
we
2 hours,
won't. We
then it's gonna
won't.
be
We
a
won't.
full documentary. Yeah,
Yeah, we won't.
yeah.
We won't. We won't.
No,
Seriously.
we're wrapping up
Yeah,
now, folks. Don't
because
worry.
but again, I think it's
Yeah,
important because maybe a teacher that works in privileged private school is going to say, "Oh
yeah,
no, we do integrate. The lessons are integrated
yeah,
in the community.
yeah,
Bring when we say bring down the walls, it's explore the community, you know,
yeah,
and not just the bubble that these people live in,
yeah,
you know. And I'm not just talking about economically privileged students. I'm talking about people in general, because everybody lives in a bubble
Exactly.
now. I live in a bubble. You live
Exactly.
in a bubble. We all live in a bubble, but we have to burst the bubble. That's why I'm telling, bring down the walls. Once the schools
Yeah.
open their doors and say, "There's a world there. Let's explore the world.
Yeah.
Let's cross the street and explore." Let's say one more thing. I'm sure that many kids that study in my daughter's school, they haven't realized that across the street, really across the street, there's a
Yeah.
mango tree. There's a
See?
mango tree. You can
Yeah.
explore the mango tree. Why not cross the street and explore the mango tree? That's right there. It's part of the community. If you have kids who love history, this kid is going to ask, okay, how long has this tree been living here? If you have a kid that really likes biology, this kid is going to explore, oh my God, what kind of properties,
Insects.
biological
Can you find on
insects?
this? Yeah, on the tree.
You see
Yeah.
something like this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh no, we like physics.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have a kid that likes physics, this kid is going to explore. Okay, what's the speed that a mango tree hits when it falls from the
Exactly.
top of the
Yeah.
tree?
Yeah.
It's there. Oh, if you have a kid that thinks about the society, this kid is going to think, what if the mango tree
Yeah.
falls and hits someone that's passing by? You generate
Yeah.
empathy. And the most important thing of
It's
all,
hands on. Yeah.
all these things, these are mental representation. And creating mental representation means cognitive activity. This is a cognitive activity, creating mental
Yeah.
representations. And this
Yeah.
can all be done once again you bring down the walls, once you open the
Let's
school's
bring
door
down the
and
walls.
you
Yeah.
show them there's a real world out there. Let's
Yeah.
go explore.
We're not talking about demolishing schools, right?
Please,
Just
no, 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 no,
we're talking about
no.
sending kids out there into the world.
No, no. If you
Yeah.
if you got
Yeah.
no, please, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't no no.
No.
If you really think that we're talking about the demolishing schools, you really misunderstood Pink
You
Floyd.
misunderstood
You
us. Don't
misunderstood Pink
destroy
Floyd
schools.
because
Yeah, exactly.
you misunderstood Pink Floyd. If you
Yeah.
really like leave the kids alone, hey teacher,
Yeah.
another brick on the wall, you know the song.
Yeah.
If you think about, if you say that, if you think we're saying demolishing schools, we're talking about
Destroy
demolishing.
the schools now. No.
Go some
Yeah.
steps back, because it starts from Pink Floyd. If you like Pink Floyd, you've been misunderstanding Pink Floyd all over,
Exactly.
man. That's not what
Exactly.
we're talking.
And that's blasphemy. You know that. But
Hell
folks,
no.
I hope you liked this discussion here.
Yeah.
You know, again, like Rudy said, if you do like what we bring to you, please hit the like button, subscribe to Disal's YouTube channel, share this episode with those who really need to watch and reflect, especially educators, school owners, coordinators, directors, and other teachers out there, because you know what? It's the revolution that Rudy was talking about. We want people to rethink what they're doing
Exactly.
inside schools, and bringing kids outside so they can better integrate with the community and learn from that experience.
Exactly.
That's it, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. And once you do that, now that we're about to wrap up, explore the channel,
Yeah.
because there is a section there called podcast, and you're going to find the previous episodes of Chá Pedagógico here. And you can also
Exactly.
do the same thing. Click the thumbs up if you like the episodes. Share the episodes with
Yep.
every group you participate in WhatsApp, and you have teachers and you have educators. Share this episode right here and the previous episodes as well. If you really, some of these books are already checked. They are on Disal's website. Go to
Giselle's
Disal,
webs- Yeah.
exactly, disal.com.br. It's DISAL, .com.br. And when you're checking out, type Chá 25. So
Yeah.
Chá,
Don't forget the
CHA.
hashtag.
Oh yeah, hashtag.
Hashtag Chá
Chá.
CHA25.
25.
And you get a
25.
discount.
You're
Yeah.
going to get 25% off. The titles are there. I checked. The titles are there.
Yeah.
You can check the books. Follow us on our
Awesome.
socials as well. How do you find Andre on socials? His handle is the Learning Cosmos. The Learning
Yes.
Cosmos. How are you going
And
to find
how
me?
do you find Rudy? Don't forget double T double L, Matiello Consultoria, right? So
Exactly. And don't
double
forget
T
to
double L.
and
Yeah.
don't forget to follow Gisal's. Their handle is Gisal Distribuidora, if I'm not wrong, right? Am I right? I
Yeah.
always
They're gonna find it, I'm sure. Yeah.
and if you can't find
There's
them,
there's
find
an
us.
Instagram button right here on YouTube, so you
Exactly.
can
Thank you
click.
so
There
much.
you go.
Yes, it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
And once again,
Yeah.
our little sis is on
YouTube,
vacation,
folks.
so she's not here. Today we have Maria or Redhead. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much,
much.
sis, Lyrica, and the whole team of Giselle behind us. Thank you so much for
Yes.
bringing this episode. Don't be shy, guys. Talk to us. Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
promise it's the last thing. If you really
Yeah.
want to bring Chá Pedagógico to your schools, talk to
Yeah.
us. Even if
Even
it's
in
in
Argentina.
Argentina.
Yeah.
Dibs.
Right? Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much,
Thank you,
folks.
guys.
We'll
See
be
you when I
there.
see you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye. Yeah.
Dibs.
Right? Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much,
Thank you,
folks.
guys.
We'll
See
be
you when
there.
I see you. Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye bye.